First guest is Rich Hoffman. Rich was with us about a year ago, believe it or not, and the 2 hours went so fast. Rich relocated to Huntsville, Alabama from Alexandria, Virginia, with the BRAC transition in 2009 as a defense contractor, and formerly with Booz Allen Hamilton. He's provided support to the Army Material Command Chief's Information Officer organization for the past 18 years and recently shifted to working with NetCom organization, the organization in control of Army networks. Responsibilities are largely centered on data center and application consolidations, strategic planning. He's an IT guy. I am too. That's why I get along with him so well. But his side job, which he takes pride in and invests so much time in, is MUFON. And I want to go ahead and bring Rich on and let him give us a little bit of background about him and MUFON. And we're going to talk everything ufology for the next couple hours. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and hit the right buttons, get him on the line. Rich, good evening. Welcome to AM 630 and the Fringe radio show, my friend.
Hi, it's good to be back with you, Pat. I didn't realize it's been a whole year like that. Wow. And I can't believe that you have a cold and 104-degree weather. That's amazing. I don't want it, by the way.
I don't know if it's a cold or if it's like bronchitis. I don't know what it is. It's not. It doesn't have the typical symptoms of a cold, but boy, I just can't shake this thing no matter what I do. But anyway, yeah, it's been a year, and it seems like yesterday. And I know we had you on last time, and the 2 hours flew by, and so many things to cover. Why don't you give our listeners that weren't here last time a little bit of your background, your bio, and let's find out a little bit about Rich Hoffman.
All right. Well, just let me give you an update because a lot's happened in that year that we talked about. First off, I'm back at Army Material Command. I left and went to an organization called NetCom. I'm back at the Army Material Command, which is it's the head logistics organization for the Army. And I do work IT. I've always worked IT. I love that technology stuff, and I, much like you probably, I just really enjoy it. But the other thing that's happened to me over the course of just since I believe it was February of this year, I was the Alabama and Mississippi state director, but now I've moved up to the headquarters level, and I became what they call the STAR team manager, and also the deputy director of investigation. So I'm really playing at a much larger level than I was a year ago, and so I'm now doing a lot with bringing some of my skills to bear on improving investigations, improving the way we handle evidence cases, trying to communicate more than keep in touch with everybody from the different states. And I'm also trying to let people know more about ways that they can improve their skills. It's a lot of different things. I've been writing a lot of articles for the journal, and we're going to be having here this coming week, believe it or not, on June 24th, we're going to have like a MUFON-wide teleconference for the state directors and assistant state directors. So we're trying to update them on a lot of different things. So we're breaking some new ground there. I'm heavily involved on a day-to-day basis with all of the cases that come in. I literally get them, and just to let you know, since yesterday's Hangar 1, we have about 210 cases where we normally have about 40 to 50 to 60 cases.
Wow.
There's a huge volume of people wanting to now report into us that they saw something back in 1974, 1957, and you name it. So there's a large number of cases that we're getting word of in the past day. So I've been fairly busy looking through those cases to identify, as a STAR team manager, and I can explain what that is in a little bit, but I'm responsible for the cases that may have potential evidence.
Gotcha.
And I'm meaning evidence from the standpoint of physical evidence. It might have a trace, might be an abduction case where there's like an implant or some other effect, associated with that. So I tend to focus my time and energy towards those cases and making sure that we get to the evidence quickly, that we do a thorough job of collecting it, properly document it, and then of course I looked at the disposition of where evidence will go. If it goes direct to a lab or headquarters, I've got a team of consultants that put together that basically help assist with acting as subject matter experts and scientists to help with the investigations as well. So I've been doing a lot here, Pat, is what I've been doing.
Well, and it's good to see, MUFON here especially. We went for such a long time, Rich, with no state director. Now we've got Erica Lukes that is attending events and bringing in, getting members involved, getting people involved, become members of MUFON, and we've got so much stuff going on in the skies here in Utah, and I've had Erica on the show several times. And the amount of work that she puts in, I know what her workload looks like, plus running her own business and, being a mom and a wife and all that. And like you having, and then taking on the challenge of this is just, it's monumental.
Well, and absolutely right. I just want to say I spoke with Erica today because I always keep in touch with her to see if she's surviving because she's kind of, newbie in this. And she's taking on large roles and hoping that she is not burning herself out, which is another tendency that we all do because we're all volunteers.
Right.
None of us are being paid, so we all have day jobs and lives and everything else, and we try to balance that and still help out MUFON as much as we can because we believe that we want to find answers to the solution of the UFO, and it doesn't appear that too many other people are paying attention to that.
Well, and again, like with MUFON, it is interesting because, everybody, like with every organization, everyone has different thoughts, different comments on things. But I think as an organization, what you guys do, again, being all volunteers, the amount of time and effort that all your members put in, like yourself and Erica and many others, it's a challenge. It's a challenging topic. It's an interesting topic, but so challenging to how can I put it in a nice way? Sometimes the general public can look at people that talk about what we talk about or what MUFON's all about and think you're crazy. And then there's other people that say, yeah, I saw something. I know I saw something, and I want to tell somebody about it, and I want a place to report it. And what you guys do, again, my hat's off to you. It's a lot. It's a monumental effort.
It really is. And we definitely want. I've gained a real appreciation of working, of course, at the international level and seeing just how many cases are coming in. And then, of course, I'm talking to a lot of people from around the country. And, the amount of time that, like you say, that everybody puts in trying to do a good, thorough investigation on even a case that turns out to be a bird. It's really remarkable, to look at because they'll do a lot to document and try to get all the information and treat this very seriously. And so it's a job to be commended for. MUFON is largely just a charity organization. It's tax deductible to make donations to it. And of course, we live off of just what we get from a couple memberships and manual sales and the MUFON Symposium, which is up in September 24th to the 27th in Irvine, California. Those are the only ways we can make any kind of money to be able to keep us going. And so we look for donations, we look for people to join, we look for people to attend conferences, and people who want to join and help us to even tackle this problem. We definitely need it. We definitely need that in all states. Like you pointed out, Erica, has been graciously enough to be able to pick up the state of Utah. And there's many other states we've got right now where we need leadership, and we don't have it. And so a lot of us from other states are helping out, trying to be able to do what we can. So the more we get interest from shows like Hangar One and some of the other things we got, hopefully we'll get more people that want to come on board and maybe play a leadership role and help us out. So it's all good.
Oh, it is. How did you, Rich? How did you get involved in this whole thing? If you could kind of talk about that, what got you? What got you interested in the study, the field of ufology?
Oh, well, that's an interesting story. And I don't know if I told you this or not, Pat, but at age 13, I was late for a science class in junior high school, and the teacher, Mr. Bayshore, had passed around a list of subjects that you had to talk about and do a 10-minute presentation. And, I was late, and so I got what nobody signed up for, and that was UFOs. I went up after class to ask him, well, what was a UFO? And he basically said, well, it's an unidentified flying object. And have you flying saucers? I said, yeah, I think I've seen them on movies. And I'm living in Dayton, Ohio at the time, and I just was not even aware of the fact that just up the street from the Air Force project, so I was pretty young yet, I really did a little foray into getting some books at the library, I think, and one was my trip to Venus, and the other one was my Saturnian lover or stuff. Anyway, I didn't do well on the report. I got a D because it was well-read subject and basically landed me with a lot of questions like, well, what about news? What about radar cases? What about the going like, what book did you read? And so it was the date that I got the D was, right around the April 24th, 1964 time frame. I remember going home that evening or something like that, and Walter Cronkite got on and was talking about the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro, New Mexico. And of course, that's a police officer that had an encounter with an egg-shaped object. And then I kept following it with intrigue and found out that there was, there was a serious look into it. Hynek, who else was there, Professor J. Allen Hynek. But it turned out that there was also some sort of effects to the sand where it had siliconized, and there was some shrubs that were burned, but yet there was not a kind of a scorching kind of thing, and there were also footprints, and there were landing pad marks, and I'm going wow, what is that?
Right.
And then just a few days after that, my aunt graciously took me to a bookstore, and I picked up my first book ever on that subject was it's a report on unidentified flying objects by Captain Edward Ruppelt, the former head of Project Blue Book. And I'm reading it, and it's all about Dayton, Ohio. And I'm going wow, here I am, right located where an Air Force project is looking at this stuff. Well, that did it. A 13-year-old kid is now scrambling to get every book, every newspaper article, every kind of thing that he can get his hands on. And by age 15, I was out doing public speaking, and I remember I was speaking to adults on the subject. There were a lot of cases that were coming in. I was actually trying to go out and do investigations on cases at age 15. And the next thing I knew, I was on Phil Donahue's show, and from after I did the Phil Donahue show, all hell broke loose in Dayton, Ohio, because now I became the de facto guy to go to. So that just propelled me further. I mean, I just kept going on and on and on, and I've been doing it now for, it's 51 years, I guess, or something like that. So you're talking to a guy who's been doing investigations for a very, very long time. I've lived around. I was actually doing I was doing investigations and sitting next to an Air Force Blue Book officer who was doing investigations for the same case. So I had unusual encounters with the base personnel. In fact, it got to the point where I could call up what they call RAPCON, which is the Rapid Approach or Radar Approach Control for the base, and they would actually help confirm for me whether or not any aircraft were in an area. And so I started to meet with some of the Blue Book people. I actually gave a lecture on UFOs to the Air Force at Air Force at Wright Pat. And so I've had this tremendous history of being around that. I got to meet Hynek all the time when I come to Dayton, and then I met a bunch of other people, and It's just been a real joy for me. It's been a passion that I've not let go of, and it's been fun. And now I find myself still doing it at age 63, going to be 64 in September.
That's a long time, my friend.
Yeah, it is. But like I said, Pat, it's just one of those things where it's a mystery that just keeps on giving.
How did, Hynek, of course, he was kind of one of the first, if you will, people with credentials, I think, that came onto the scene in this science. And you had the opportunity to work with him, an amazing guy. There's different articles written. There's not a lot of interviews, of course, but how was it working with him? How was he I guess my question is, was he a believer, or did he believe that something else existed and he was looking for the proof? What was Hynek's take on this whole subject?
Well, Hynek was put into it's a very difficult situation to be a contractor for a government organization that wants to really kill off the subject, okay?
Right.
So he did a delicate balance of trying to get a paycheck, like most of us, but yet at the same time, seeing and having to deal with the fact that the Blue Book personnel, that were in charge wanted to kill off the program and basically shut the doors. And so he had to go along with them for the most part, but it was still a struggle, a personal struggle for him, because he started to see that there were very legit cases. Anybody that spends any time and really looks into this thing will see very readily that there's something to it if they do that work. And I applaud him for being a scientist that actually spent the time to learn. Because he moved into becoming pretty much a believer. I mean, there's something going on. He even had a personal sighting himself, And so I think that when, and scientists really need to get involved with this. I mean, and really, really study it. And I just want to stress that we need scientists to really engage like him and to really look into this subject. And I know it's tough, and I know that that they're all trying to make the proverbial dollar, and a lot of people don't condone it around their workplace. But we have a lot of people that are scientists that are like part of what we call the invisible college, where Jacques Vallée mentioned that, where it's kind of a collection of people who keep hidden that still are looking into this very seriously. And I applaud those scientists that we've got doing that, but we need more.
Well, one thing, I actually did an interview on another radio station a few months ago, and I made a comment, and I kind of maybe stirred the waters a little bit with my comment, but I really stick to it, and that all of the efforts that people like yourself and Stanton Friedman and Richard Dolan and all the ufologists, all the people that are a part of MUFON, all the time and effort that they've put in, it seems like we're kind of, a lot of the guys, even like myself, even though I'm not a ufologist, we're getting up there in age, Rich. It doesn't seem like there's too many new young people moving into this field. There's a little bit of a what I'll call, and again, I don't mean to offend anybody, but a little bit of a good old boys club. There's a handful of people out there that produce a few books and talk at some conferences and what have you. But we just don't seem to have anybody new coming into this field. I mean, there's some young people that want to pick up the baton and carry it and do the research and put in the time and the effort that it takes to flush this subject.
You're absolutely right, and I don't know. I think that to me it's one of those things where it's like a lot of the people that are, of course, our age grew up with the flying saucer mystery is always out there. It was all over the news. You had an Air Force project that was investigating it for up until like 1969, and so there was some credibility to it. And Then you had the period of time after that where the Air Force got out of it and it kind of like floundered around a lot. And then, then you have the CIA-backed tabloids, if you would, tabloids that were helping to promote that it's just, crap and we shouldn't even get into it. And so it's been a very, very long struggle to be able to get the credibility reestablished. And, of course, MUFON's trying to help out on that with the Hangar 1 series and stuff like that, which, by the way, has brought in a lot of younger people now. We're starting to see a little bit more interest from them. But you're absolutely right. We have a lot of the people that are doing investigations in many states are still the older group that are doing it. And we have, like, meetings that here even in Alabama, and I don't want to say that they're all old people.
Right,
but
right.
What I'm trying to say is we just don't have, 16, 17, 18-year-olds that are bopping in the door at any time. And we'd like to see more of that. Erica is a very young gal, and I'm so glad that she's joining us and doing more. And then there's a number of others. We've got some other states where we're seeing people like Ben Moss, and some of these people actually are on the show, Hangar 1. But we have a number of states that have some young people, but we, again, have states where we need really, really supported, and we're not getting it, and that younger audience that maybe potentially might be interested are not coming forward. So definitely have a need, like you're saying, though, because we need to be able to keep the investigations going. And with technology today, we have a definite need to be able to leverage the technology in a better way to do case investigations. And so that alone should be of interest to some younger people, especially since they grew up with them in their hands, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, I think maybe something that has not, sparked. I mean, we had a lot of cases back in the, Roswell, Socorro, different things that happened over the years. But I think that if there are, which I believe there are, if there are any crash landings, if there has been some physical evidence, I would assume that in today's technology, stuff like that, if you want to call it from a them perspective, if we want to say the government, that stuff's going to get snapped up pretty quick because, again, we looked at cases like Roswell. That was the middle of nowhere. I mean, today people are everywhere. Technology is everywhere. I think we're seeing more and more really good photos of unidentified flying objects. But there's been nothing really new or big, to my knowledge, that has really come out. No real big events.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I agree with you. I mean, to me, it's like we do have some rather incredible cases, though. I mean, there are some excellent cases that I think that you're going to hear about in the coming months that will probably knock your socks off a little bit. But there are those. I've been in this like so long, and if I had to count on my hands how many cases that really, really were significant, I could probably do it on both hands, and that would be about it. I mean, there are just not that many that I personally was involved in. Okay, let me qualify that a little bit. And so to me, it's a rare event to have a good UFO case. It's a very rare event. And so much of it is about the fact that people coming forward is often not happening. And there's been an increasing amount of, I'm not going to say anything because people will call me a kook. I got neighbors that will come after me and call me a kook or whatever like that. And I think that the tabloids help to put it in that kind of a context. So let me just say that there are probably, Hynek always mentioned and Valet always mentioned that there were 1 out of every 12 cases get reported. And so using that statistic, and also the fact that the other 11 ones are oftentimes not reported because of the strangeness index, meaning that the stranger the story, the less likely that I'll tell anybody. And so I don't think we're getting those strange stories enough.
Right.
And especially ones that are current, meaning that a lot of people don't know about MUFON, a lot of people don't know where to report it, and there may be a significant case going on right now as we are on the phone, and that witness is never going to report the case.
Right. Oh, very true.
And so I think that we've got to get past that. We've got to somehow get the word out. How do you contact people? We've got to do a better job of that. We've got to be able to, put our name out, let people know here's the number to call, or here's where you go to report. And then we've got to be out there on the scene investigating those cases and getting as much evidence as we possibly can, and doing excellent casework on it. So that's kind of like where I'm at, and I think that we need to really make it. And the other part of this is I want to see us get to the front end of all this stuff, meaning I want to get in front of it. We can collect sightings till doomsday and not get very far. I want to get technology out so that it is actually capturing the objects as they're going overhead and getting them on film, getting them on radar, getting them caught on some sort of sensors or devices that can record that. And that's where I believe that we need to go. We need to start leveraging technology better. And there's right now, working even with the Army, we're putting up satellites that are no bigger than a bread box. Literally small devices. There's no reason we couldn't send a missile up with all kinds of satellites, with all kinds of gizmos, cameras, sensors, you name it, ourselves, and get those things into orbit and deployed. Why not? Why can't we do that? And so, you know where I'm going? That's where we need to be going, is more of capturing the technology that we've got around us, that we're using, that may be available to us. And I'm working with a project that's really doing that kind of work right now to build a concept model to be able to help deploy stuff like that.
Right. Well, and again, the pictures people are getting, sadly, there's plenty of hoaxers out there, Rich, that are putting enough trash and noise out on the internet that's, I think, is harming things. But I think people are starting to capture more stuff. I know there's some individuals that are doing Skywatch parties, Skywatch events on YouTube. And people are going out. Matter of fact, we've had a couple guys on the show who set up camera systems and spend hours and hours dissecting the data. And the thing is just like I'm sure Wilbur Allen. Wilbur Allen's like you got to shoot a couple 100,000 frames looking up in the sky, and you will see something, and you will capture something. We've got somebody a couple calls on hold. You want to take a call?
Sure.
All right. Caller, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk. You're on with Rich Hoffman.
Good evening, Pat and Rich. This is Bill in New York.
Good evening, my friend.
How are you?
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Rich.
I am Rich, good. Speaking of sky watching.
Yes. I had to touch on that point when you guys were just mentioning that before the break. Actually, I upgraded, and a friend of mine in Boston, Eric, who's also doing the Skywatch along with me, we just upgraded to night vision. And you mentioned about spreading the word. And through social media, and specifically I use YouTube, and I've been conducting these live Skywatches using the night vision. And I got to tell you, it's increasing in the watching, the people that are tuning in and watching these Skywatches. I think that's a good way to spread the word as far as putting that out there, getting people interested. And it's just not just for observation of UFOs, but it can start with interest in astronomy, a family type of environment, to get interested in doing sky watching. But I got to tell you, I'm picking up a lot of objects I was unable to detect using my previous camera system. And it's very curious because I think that there's a lot of activity going on up there that is undetectable without using the proper equipment. And I just want to know what your thoughts are about using night vision equipment to observe the skies.
Me, I think personally it's like one of those things where the night vision, unless you have really, really good night vision equipment, the tendency is for it to make a small object appear to be larger than it is, and also to heighten, of course, illuminate it more so that you can see it. And sometimes even something as simple as a bug or something like that can appear to be huge. What we're trying to promote is that we get, well, of course, it's a good thing to detect something. We're right now working with the concept of placing and deploying these units that actually have as many as maybe five different cameras on them, and they're hitting different frequencies. We need to have spectral range. We need to have infrared. We need to have visible. We need to have probably night vision to heighten it as well. So we're looking at deploying these things to hotspots so that we can capture all different kinds of things. And the spectral range is really what we definitely want to try to get to. But
yeah, that would
be
great.
The fact that you're outdoors and looking is an extremely good thing. There's a group called MUFON Aerial Surveillance Team in Florida, and Bill Schroeder has been really successful in getting that one stood up. But they're using a lot of technology on that. They've got things hooked into computers. They have a sky watch. They're out looking at the skies. They've got all kinds of telescopes and cameras, and you name it, it's all going. And I think it's great. I think we need to do more of that.
You know what?
So I applaud you for doing that, Bill.
You know what, Rich? The thing that I look for, and you're correct when you say about the objects that appear using the night vision, I'm looking for anything that has unusual movement. I mean, extremely unusual movement that would maybe be deemed not man-made or not natural phenomenon. But I just want to ask you a couple of questions before I get off the air. You were recently promoted to become the MUFON Deputy Director of Investigations and the STAR Team Manager covering all the critical cases in the U.S. Can you tell us about the type of work that is involved and how cases are deemed to be of significant importance using the STAR Team?
So, yeah, what I've been doing is I kind of alluded a little bit to it, but I literally get every case that comes into MUFON in my email. We also have the means of, and we classify all the cases. And we use the Jacques Vallée classification system, and also it's a combination of Jacques Vallée and J.L. Hynek. So we have a system, and I know that the Hynek one was, of course, close encounters of the first kind, second kind, third kind, and so on and so forth. There's Jacques Vallée added to it, and so we have a classification system that a team that I work with actually looks at every case and assigns a category to it. So if it's an object that's less than 500 feet away, it might be a close encounter of the first kind. So they'll put that into the report. And then what we do is we also look at what we have a categorization of category 1, 2, and 3. Category 1 is a case where we see that we can pretty much look at getting to it within a 72-hour period. Category 2 is a 48-hour. And Category 3 is less than 24 hours. So you can imagine that a Category 3 case is going to be one that we're going to have to hurry up. It might be a close encounter of the third kind or a second kind where you've got actually some physical evidence that you have to get to. So we assign those categories, and that helps us to then go and make a determination on how we respond and how quickly we respond. And I get a category report that comes to me about all the Category 2s and 3s that are out there, the ones we have to get to fairly quick. And then that team that I told you that helps us find that also has been helping me to identify cases as they come in that may look like strong potential. And so I then, on a weekly basis, collect those, and I put them in a spreadsheet. I've got a spreadsheet that I keep up with, which has cases of high interest, and then I keep a status of whether they're closed or whatever like that, which state that they're in, what their categorization is, and I start to evaluate and keep track on a week-by-week basis of those specific cases. And so, like right now, I've got somewhere in the vicinity of about maybe 30 cases or something like that I have looked at since becoming the STAR teacher, and I'm monitoring their progress. And I then am also communicating with the state director or the field investigators to try to make sure that we're doing a good job with those. So that's kind of like what I do, Bill.
I'm sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's kind of pretty much what the STAR team manager role really is. It's about looking at those cases of high value, and the STAR team members that we have are our most advanced field investigators, the ones that would have done a lot of cases that have more experience than some of the new people that come on board, and also have equipment that they can go out and get to and collect the evidence in the field or whatever it is. You know, if it's an implant, they work with, of course, doctors and the MUFON experience or research team to be able to help collect that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
I was actually going to ask you about the type of equipment they use, but I think you kind of covered. They use the equipment that is utilized to investigate on the location, wherever it may be. Now, I just want to preference the next question with a little story, a little background. A friend of mine who lives in the northern region, coastal region of Canada, she had a sighting, and she lives in a remote area, and she contacted MUFON to report it. And it seems that there may be, in Canada specifically, I guess a lack of field investigators I don't know if it's due to the remote area or just not enough field investigators. What do you think about MUFON's role internationally? And have you ever investigated cases personally in other countries?
Well, the resource issue that you address is a global one. We don't have enough field investigators everywhere. Again, it's, people's lives are, if you look at the economic position in some states, for example, I know Mississippi's hit hard, Louisiana's hit hard with economic issues. A lot of people, can't afford to do this on a volunteer basis. And,
right.
Especially if it's like, getting in your car, putting gas in your car and driving, 130 miles away to get to some remote location. And you do that, and you do all this wonderful work, and you take all these tests, and you have all this wonderful equipment, but you can't afford to leave your day job, or you can't, So we understand that that's the challenge of running a volunteer organization where, you have to rely on people to do that and do that to the best of their ability economically. And so it's a sad situation, and we lose cases, like I say, because of things like that. And some areas, and Canada may be one of those. I know that there's a number of other countries that are still coming online. And yes, I have investigated cases in other countries. I've investigated cases in England, Israel. I've done it in some of these South African countries. And I've been helping out on what they call the Case Assistance Group. We have a group of STAR team members that maybe are not busy or something of that nature that help out internationally for countries where there may be a good case and you're trying to be able to help collect it and validate it. And so we go out and we actually contact the witnesses and try to do an investigation long distance, if you would.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been doing this research for many years, and I know this is maybe a tough question, but of all the cases that you've researched and looked into, investigated, which case do you believe has the most credibility as far as physical, photographic, witness testimony that you looked into?
Well, let me put it to you this way. Every case has some unique aspects to it. For example, when I investigated the Mississippi pilot case that had basically we had a very credible individual who sees an object that's out in front of his plane. He's about 2,500 feet up in the air, and here's an object that moves underneath his wing. It was that close. Mm-hmm. And he looks over and sees that. And then to find out, after I did all that incredible investigation and talking with him and trying to analyze the size of it and everything else and getting angular dimensions and getting his speed locked and where was his position, well, then we find out that there's actually radar associated with that. So, and we looked at I had a gentleman that helped me to look at getting a radar. We got actually 6 different radar sites data, and on one of them, we actually spotted the object, and the object is making incredible speed changes, direction changes, and so I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that for me was a pretty incredible case. Mm-hmm. I investigated back in the 70s a case with a landing, which to me blew me away. I mean, that was my aha moment, if you would. I've never had a sighting of a UFO myself, but I don't need one because I've already had these experiences like this one. But I mean, you had a farmer who was basically in Carrollton, Ohio, who, there was a lot of UFO activity the night before. He comes out the next day, and his wheat crop has got a circular area 70 foot in diameter that's no longer there. And the wheat crop is gone, and the soil's been baked 2 feet in the ground, 70 foot in diameter. There's no evidence of the roots in the middle. And as you go out to the perimeter, to the 70 foot or 35 foot in each direction, you find that basically there's no roots of the wheat left in the middle. There's a depression area, and it clearly shows that some sort of a weight came down on that. And then on the outer perimeter of that, you've got puffed wheat and a rotating wheat pattern. So, I mean, that was an aha moment. That's a landing case. And then, I've certainly investigated a lot of other exceptionally interesting and good cases that have helped to do it. And then I'm also working on a study right now of a video, infrared video from an organization that I can't mention right now, but we're actually putting a study together on that, and that's been a long time in the making, and so it has incredible potential, and so they're all kind of unique. So you can have a photographic case that's pretty doggone incredible. You can have a landing case that's pretty incredible, or you can have a mixture of them with like multiple witnesses, or I've been at sightings with as many as 30 people standing up and watching something. Certainly in 1973, and this is written up in Len Stringfield's book. Len was a personal friend of mine, but he wrote a book called Situation UFO Siege, and in that book you can see a number of the cases that I looked at because he documented in those cases, and there were 22 police officers that were out observing for a half an hour with about 30 other witnesses, an object in the sky. I contacted RAPCON. There was nothing in the area, according to them, but yet here they were watching it. It goes overhead. He takes a photograph of it with his police camera, and the next thing you know, it's splattered all across the National Enquirer by Bob Pratt, and of course, that witness regretted the fact that policeman regretted the fact that he had ever reported anything because his life became a hell after that. So.
Hey, guys, I got to take a NBC News break here in just about 30 seconds or so. Bill, you want to stick around, or
I'll say goodnight to Rich. And Rich, enjoy your vacation over in Ireland, and I'll definitely talk to you when you get back.
All right, great. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Have a great
Bill,
night.
as always.
I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.